Hello everyone! In this video we will explore the story of the Lancer from level 1 to level 30. This is a class you can either pick from the character creation or simply walk into the guild and tell them you really want to fight with a spear. Gillian, the receptionist, is kind enough to tell us a bit about the guild history. The spear has been the mainstay of locals in the Twelfth Wood in the past, used primarily for hunting and defense of the home, for example through the wood dwellers that guard the forest. Over time, the nation became a gathering place for those interested in the art of spear, with each spearmaster bringing some new insight or technique. Over time, the merging of this variety of techniques would be adopted. Eventually, Captain Mistal of the Wood Dweller formed the Lancer Guild for training and honing the spearmaster art. This was about a century ago, and since then, the guild still accepts new students from both inside and outside of Gridania, ensuring the ongoing evolution of this noble art. For our start on the journey of spearmanship, we must meet with Guildmaster Even. Even does welcome us and explains the Lancer is a fighter who never stops. They train to gain courage, and in a fight they remain on the offense using the spear as an extension of themselves. And that is why our first task is to kill some smaller creatures near the city, to start developing our feel for the weapon, so it can stop being just a weapon and become part of us. And while we do that, let's talk a bit about being a Lancer. The Lancer is a melee DPS which evolves into the Dragoon. Fighting with a spear, their attacks are relentless, focused on a variety of stabs and a combo, along with having a few mobility improving abilities, like jumps and throws, making the Lancer a great fun to play. As it evolves into the Dragoon, it becomes a very jumpy class, as you will jump around the battlefield while stabbing your enemies. It is flashy, it has some interesting story, and I highly recommend it. But after we kill those critters, and we are sent off for further training, and then soon return to the guild. Now it's time for us to learn the meaning of courage. Even explained that courage means to have the strength to do something one finds unnerving. But the Lancer looks deeper into what courage actually is. First, the Lancer must be able to tell the difference between courage and recklessness. And then, the simple concept of courage is split into two parts for the Lancer. First being composure, the ability to remain in control of one's emotion during a battle, not to succumb to panic or rage. This composure we must practice by going to kill some Yarsen in the Central Shroud. These critters tend to attack in groups, overwhelming their prey, and that makes them an excellent source for this practice. We bring some disgusting smelling bait to the area where Yarsen tend to nest, setting it down there, and the Yarsen swarm us. But we keep our composure and return victorious back to the Guildmaster. Now it's time for us to learn the second part of courage. This is resolve. When a Lancer is faced with a terrible foe, he can't succumb to fear or self-doubt. Then he will start becoming too defensive, limiting his greatest strength, which is the ability to attack. When a Lancer is afraid, he turns from a man with a spear to someone holding a pole. Hell, he could just as well be holding a broom, and that is not going to defend him from any major attacks. No, the only solution is to kill your enemy first. For this training we head out to our spirit hold, where there are 3 supposedly haunted pillars. We must find these collapsed pillars and kill what emerges before reporting to the receptionist in the guild who has some wisdom on courage. From the pillars emerge angry flies and one big-ass toad. We slay them easily and with resolve and composure before returning to the guild to find Gillian. She tells us she struggled with these lessons at the time, but just like our body, our courage can be trained. If we enter each fight with determination to strengthen our composure and resolve, it will over time become second nature. As we're speaking to Gillian, there is suddenly a commotion in the training area. We go in there to figure out what's going on and find our guildmates bested on the floor before a white-haired Lancer. He tries to challenge the Guildmaster, but he refuses to fight him. And then the white-haired Lancer spots us. He turns and observes us before testing our courage by dashing forward, spear in hand, stopping mere centimeters from our face. Now, some might say it was courage or recklessness. I honestly just think I kind of froze in fear there for a second and therefore didn't dodge. The white-haired Lancer tells us and the Guildmaster that only those with true courage are to become Lancers, and then he leaves us. The Guildmaster is a bit concerned about our reaction, but tells us to go train more before telling everybody else to get back to the drills. It is not long later that we are given the trial of courage. The trial involves fetching the stone of courage. But this is no easy task. The stone has been placed amidst a group of gnolls, a meat-eating hostile creatures that tend to travel in packs. Getting through them requires both definition of courage, as we learned in the last lesson. So we head to the central shroud where the stone awaits us on top of naked rock. As we reach the stone, the white-haired lancer shows up telling us this is in fact a false stone of courage, that he has taken the real one and moved it to a more suitable location for such a trial. We now learn this Ellison's name is Falkes, and as we stood unmoving or potentially frozen in fear as he lunged toward us within the guild, he saw some potential in us, so he wants to give us a proper test. The stone is in Spirit Hold. All we must do is fetch it or crawl weeping back to Yvain. Now, this guy is a bit full of himself, but we aren't about to back down from a challenge, so off to Spirit Hold we go. There we find an unnerving amount of imps fluttering about, but with some brute force mixed with stealth, we reach the stone at last, returning it to the guild. Yvain is furious as he hears our tale, reminding us that Falkes' idea of courage, only being trained by facing great risk, is foolish, and that true courage comes from composure and resolve. He asks us to remember this lesson well, and not let Falkes lead us off the path. With two opposite ideas in mind, we head back out to train for a while. Returning some time later, we learn Falkes has returned yet again, throwing around insults within the guild. This time a young lancer got angry, and the two ended up agreeing to duel out in the East Shroud. Yvain is unable to abandon his duties, so instead we are to head out there and watch our guild brother. Agreeing readily, we hurry out to the East Shroud. There we find Falkes with our guildmate tied up. He claims himself to be our mentor now, being the one teaching us the true form of courage. I don't remember signing up for this class, but alright. And he has a trial for us. One we can't refuse, else our guild member might get harmed. So with that threat hanging over us, we agree. Falkes tells us that he has picked a suitable opponent for us to train on, someone proper to strengthen our courage. He gives us a powder we must sprinkle on a nearby root, and then face the creature that will emerge. And that turned out to be one big-ass angry tree, but we managed to take it down. We return to Falkes demanding our guild member to be released, but he refuses and tells us we must finish another trial first, to go to Lifeman's Dump, where a pack of wolves tend to wander. There we must lay the alpha wolf while he watches. But as we go there and fight the wolf, we learn that Falkes does not just watch. No, first he joins us. As we are striking down the alphas and the wolf, he instead riles up the whole pack, gathering even more annoying wolves to fight, before just abandoning us. This guy is a right bastard. After we take down enough wolves to clothe a small village, he praises us, telling us we tempered our courage even more, along with bringing peace to Lifeman's Dump, which is a sacred place for the people of Gridania. Then he encourages us to abandon the guild, but we refuse, knowing this path is not the right one. We then report back to Yvain with a tale of our new trial, and Yvain is dismayed over this nonsensical training style, confirming something must be done about Falkes. He is harming the guild and might harm others and himself with his mad ways. But how to deal with him is not really our problem. No, for now we must train, while Yvain thinks on the matter. As we return some time later, Yvain tells us he plans to challenge us more than he has ever done before, but he does not plan to send us off unprepared. So before that we must spar with 3 of our guild members. We beat each of them in a single combat, proving our readiness to face this next trial. Yvain warns us the trial is going to be dangerous and asks if we still want to proceed. We confirm, only for Falkes to show up, proclaiming his disappointment in us still being part of the guild. He reveals he plans to shut the guild down forever, challenging the guildmaster yet again. This time, Yvain takes up the challenge, but as Falkes only believes we are worthy of the title of Lancer within the guild, we will face Falkes instead. So Yvain makes it a competition, the trial we are to complete, which one of us can do it faster. The trial itself is simple. We must go to the Lord of Bramble Patch and prove our courage. The Lord of the Bramble Patch is actually a magnificent boar, gigantic in stature and unrivaled in strength and fighting ability. He rules all of his kind, and it's before him we must stand our ground with true courage. But summoning him is actually not that easy. First we must kill 10 of his subjects and use their tusks as an offering to get him to even appear before us. As soon as the trial has been set, Falkes dashes out like somebody lit his pants on fire, while we follow at less of a breakneck speed, planning our action and how to face this mighty boar. We start by travelling to the Hawthorn Hut and there is a short track north to the boar area. And these boars are huge. So if these are the regular boars, I started to think what the king is going to be like. With 10 bloody tusks in hand, we head to the designated place, making our offering. Falquest joins us, not having put any work into it, and then it appears, the biggest boar I have ever seen. We pull up our lancers and fight, the boar barely caring, but we do our best, and then it charges Falquest, throwing him across the field, where he lays on the grass looking frightened. With the great boar approaching him, we dash over to his defense, just as Yvain appears, telling the boar it will find little sport in us. And the boar just leaves, just like that. Yvain congratulates us on completing the trial, but Falquest still refuses to see the madness of his path. That courage forced through throwing oneself into mortal danger is not true courage. It is recklessness, it is stupidity. But as he refuses, Yvain grabs his lance, aiming it at the Ellison, who gasps, backing away. Falquest can't admit that he's afraid, so instead he stomps off with his own lance while we return to the guild to finish the trial. It is there Yvain tells us that if we had shown fear in front of the Lord of the Bramble Patch, he would have killed us without hesitation. But with our composure and resolve, we stood our ground, and that is what got us through the trial. Yvain also hopes that Falquest has learned this lesson, even if he didn't want to admit it at the time. But we will not know till the future, and we must train till our next trial. And when the day of that trial comes, we report back to Yvain. This time we are to travel to meet 3 different masters of Lancery to train under. With each one having experience in his own way, we can gain much from their instruction. Our first instructor is Matiomi, who serves as a wood veiler. He currently is on duty at the Amarex Spire, which watches over the Belsar's wall, which separates the Garlean-owned areas of Alamigo from the Falsewood. With the end of the war between the Eorzean Alliance and the Garleans being 5 years ago at the Calamity, the wall is heavily watched at all times. His lesson turns out to be tempering us against even greater fears. We get a vial of blood, which we must sprinkle near a great tree nearby, and kill the creatures that emerge. What comes out is a group of bats. Perhaps not the scariest looking creatures, but they are fast and aggressive, and tend to be a little bit scarier than one would think during a fight. After reporting our victory, we are sent off yet again, this time to meet Buckarun, a tavern keep who has a unique lancing style. Buckarun tasks us with making an offering to Miss Dahl's lands. He gives us a flask of full-flower mead, which we must take over there, content and all. After that we must return to hear Buckarun's story of where we went. Miss Dahl was the founder of the Lancer Guild, and the monument we made the offering to was erected in his honor. Miss Dahl was courageous and was the one who first identified the 2 aspects of the Lancer courage, and how to temper them. He also was the one to open the guild to those outside of the Falsewood, bringing in new blood and new techniques, allowing the art of Lancery to grow and strengthen. Buckarun then sends us to our next trainer, Voxler, who is an old rival of his. They used to spar in the past, till neither one of them could hold a spear. But Voxler has apparently always been a stubborn one, and rather humorless sort, so we might have a bit of a task in front of us there. As we meet him, we learn his lesson is to learn to temper our courage during change, because enemies are ever-changing, being very living beings. So to practice this, we must fight a red balloon. But those darn things only show up when things are set on fire, so first we slay a few balloons and light a itty-bitty forest fire. Well, the area isn't very foresty, so I think it's all good. Then we slay the large red balloon, which grows and shifts as we fight it. As we report back, he is pleased with our progress, coming to the conclusion that we got through courage. So he sends us to the guild with a message to Yvain to come visit from time to time. Well, he worded it differently, but it held the same meaning. We return to Yvain, who does promise to do something about Voxler being apparently lonely, but we have finished our trial and done well. It's some time later that we return for our final trial, but as Yvain is starting to explain it, Eddard, a fellow Lancer, comes in, injured. He tells us he and others were attacked by Duskwide Lancer as they were training out in the forest, and this guy was screaming something about teaching them through courage. We all know this is Falquest, and he does not seem to have learned a damn thing since our last meeting. In fact, he seems to have gone slightly mad. While Eddard managed to get away, The others are still there and most likely injured, so our trial must wait as Even sends us to stop Volkes. Out in the forest, we come across an abandoned lands, and there nearby we hear Tibane, another of our guild brothers, calling for help. He is surrounded by wild critters while being tied up. We burst in, distracting the beast and taking them down one by one before releasing him. And he is very grateful for the timely rescue. He tells us Volkes was the one to tie him up, and left him here for the beast to temper his courage. He tells us Volkes had travelled towards the north route, and our guild brothers have alerted the wood Whalers. Now all we can do is make chase to help the Whalers capture Volkes before he hurts anyone else. We are the first to find him, but he seems to have actually been waiting for us. He tells us that those we have just saved will one day betray us, just like his companions did once when he was imprisoned and exiled. It turns out when he was younger he was a part of the Lancer Guild, but he was low on coin for the basic necessities, so he's conspired with his closest comrades to steal from the guild coffers. The theft was noticed, and it was clear someone within the guild was the thief, but without proof nothing was done. Still, an air of suspicion remained, till Volkes convinced his accomplices to join him in confessing what they had done. Except, when Volkes had confessed, they did not. It seemed much easier to blame him. So he swore to build his courage again, through fighting ever more deadly foes, full of fury, to make this true courage he believed in, and now he believes himself to be the greatest Lancer that has ever lived because he feels no fear. So it's time for us to fight, and we do. Volkes fights hard and dishonorably, falling in allies during the fight, but nonetheless we beat him. In his rage and fear, he starts flailing his lance about as he backs up ever closer to the edge, until he tumbles off it to a certain demise, his last moments filled with terror. Horrified, we return to the guild to report what happened. Even sympathizes that indeed this is truly sad tale, and if things had been different, Volkes could have become a great Lancer. But there is no use in dwelling on it. Instead, he teaches us another Lancer ability before announcing we are now a full-fledged Lancer. No more trials needed. It is now up to us to seek a ever greater challenge to get stronger. But that is something we must explore in a later video. This is one of the very few video games that I've played where I'm allowed to use a spear as a weapon, and the first one where I found it actually fun. So this was quite enjoyable, and I'm excited to try out the Dragoon later in the future. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you in the next video.